Hello and welcome back to the Not Old Firm YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks. We're only a week away. Scotland are 7 days out as I record this from playing in their first major tournament since 1998. Someone who was born 2001, I have literally never seen Scotland in a major tournament, so exciting times around the nation. I think the build-up we're going to see as we lead up to the Czech Republic game on June 14th is going to be on a scale we probably haven't seen all too often in Scottish football. So really exciting times as Scotland marches on to win Euro 2020. I'm sure that'll be the case. But on Not the Old Firm, we've got plenty of content coming out alongside. Of course, we'll have the usual match coverage. We've got different wee bits and bobs that are a bit different for us as well. This is another wee added bit we're going to do as well. We've got a slate of interviews coming. Going to tackle the Euro 2020 files. Couldn't think of anything more exciting than that. So that's what we're stuck with. That's what we're going to go with. Plenty of interviews over the course of June with past players, different people who've been involved with the national team at some stage in the sort of recent future. We're going back a fair bit with some as well. So we've got lots of different generations of Scotland people involved in this. So we hope you do enjoy. The first of which one I was quite interested to hear the thoughts of former SFA Chief Executive Stewart Regan. He was helping bringing in the performance schools, which have now brought through the likes of Billy Gilmour and Nathan Patterson into the Scotland senior side. So interesting chat about what he thinks about the Scotland national team just now, the sort of planning that went on to get to this stage. Obviously, Scotland is a host nation for the Euros. Glasgow's Hampden Park hosting some of the games, two of which Scotland will play in. So the sort of hosting process and how we got to this point where Glasgow is hosting some of the games, and as well as the performance school. The thought behind them and Stuart's 2014 vision now coming to fruition some 7 years later. So we hope you do enjoy it. Really interesting chat. And thanks again to Stuart for his time. These will probably come daily throughout Scotland's time at the Euros. We'll try for daily. Might be every few days, still in the process of getting a few different names booked and stuff. But plenty of exciting stuff. A few of which are already recorded and a couple I'm already quite excited about to record in the next coming weeks and days. So we hope you do enjoy. Do remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, keep up to date with all these videos as they come out during the Euros, on top of all the other types of preview bits and stuff we'll be doing across the tournament as well. So as I've already mentioned about 15 times, please do like and subscribe to the channel, and until next time, take care. Then.
Yeah.
I'm sure adopted Scotsman, but looking forward to the Euros this summer.
Yeah, it's going to be a great tournament. Thinking about the group that Scotland are in, obviously it'll be quite unusual for me, having spent 8 years as CEO at the Scottish FA and kind of willing Scotland to qualify at every turn, to find them in a group where I'm no longer involved and I'm an Englishman who's followed England all my life. It's going to be a really strange group. So I'd like to see them both progress if possible, but it'll be certainly an interesting game when they go head to head.
I know part of your goals and stuff that the SFA would have been to get Scotland back to that major tournament. You were obviously still there as a lot of these players in the current group were coming through. Do you think that this group were the chosen group almost? There's a lot of obviously players coming through when you were still there that have gone on to achieve really good things domestically.
Yeah. Well, it's quite a young squad now, and when you look at the sort of the plan back in 2012 when we launched the Scotland United strategy, I mean, one of the initiatives in that strategy was the creation of performance schools. So we set up 7 performance schools in partnership with local education authorities across the country. And I remember at the end of 2014, we put the bid into UEFA for Hampden to be one of the host cities in Euro 2020. And at the time, it seemed such a long time away. But last week, I was watching the video again at the end of that draw when Glasgow was pulled out the hat. And at the time, I said that our vision was for Scotland to qualify in 2020 for matches to be played at Hampden, and for the squad to include performance school players who would actually participate in the tournament. And that's happened. I mean, that's just such a fantastic achievement for all of the coaches and everybody associated with the the performance skills, because that's exactly what we set out for. The other thing that we said we would like to have within the Scottish FA was players playing at the highest levels of the game. And we always said that part of the performance strategy was what we call best versus best. So we wanted players to reach their potential by being able to play against the very best players in the world. And we targeted the sort of the top 6 leagues in Europe as the kind of places where we want them to play. And if you look at the squad now, and you look at the likes of Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney, and now Billy Gilmour as well, Scott McTominay, you've got players right at the top of the game, playing for the biggest in the world, and to have qualified for the Euros, for those guys to sort of showcase their talent. And, you know, I think they'll put on a really good show. It's going to be a fantastic tournament, really exciting time for them as players, and obviously for Scotland as a squad.
Yeah, I think down south, you'll perhaps know a bit more than me as well. There's perhaps a wee bit of sneeriness when Scotland show up at a major tournament, and things like that. Pub league and different things like that get bandied about. But when you do look at the squad, I mean, Scotland could pretty much start with a couple of Premier League captains in there: Grant Hanley, Liam Cooper, Andy Robertson's obviously as well documented, and Scott McTominay, Billy Gilmour could turn up with Europa League final and Champions League final winners' medals. So really, exactly. It's an exciting group.
I don't think people in England fully understand the Scotland squad, actually, if I'm honest, because, you know, when you look at people's comments, for example, on Twitter and so on, you see people commenting about the quality of football in Scotland. And I think, you know, the first thing that you can respond with on that is that the majority of the players are actually playing in England, and quite a lot of them are now playing at the highest level. The highest level of the Premier League as well, not just the Championship. There are obviously some Championship players in there as well, but that stand the Scotland squad. And it's a little bit like when Wales went to Euro 2016 and when Northern Ireland went to Euro 2016. You know, the lack of respect, you know, people started to give them the credit they deserved. And I think, you know, when they see some of the Scotland players playing at the Euro 2020 tournament, they'll realise just what good players they are and what a good coach Steve Clarke has turned out to be in terms of getting the squad ready and, you know, progressing them to this final.
Yeah, it probably goes without saying, but I would assume, even stretching back to your time there, a lot of work's gone on to, it's almost been, 28 years or however long it is in the making for this sort of next month.
Yeah. For a major tournament has always been there. Certainly in my 8 years, it was in every strategic plan. It was in all of the discussions. It was built into the kind of performance strategy as, you know, getting to a major final. And, you know, when you look at the other achievements of the national squads, particularly the women reaching the Euros and the World Cup, and then, you know, you look at the progress made by the under-17s, for example, who were at one point when I was in Scotland were ranked in the top 5 in Europe. The performance of the under-21s recently with Fraser Hornby's performance and, you know, winning some big matches against quality teams, you know, you just felt that there was like green shoots emerging and, you know, bit of progress. And, you know, this achievement has been, you know, the kind of icing on the cake. So it does feel as if it's been coming for a while, and it's great to see. And, you know, I know that my former team at the Scottish FA and some of the performance staff have, you know, been in touch to sort of say this is fantastic, and, you know, what a great journey it's been, and, you know, the strategy has finally paid dividends.
I'm sure with all the sort of work you put in to especially get Glasgow to be one of the the host cities, you're probably looking at Glasgow's tier restrictions just now and just thinking, please do not wreck what 8 years of work in the making, please.
Yeah, I hope it's a smooth transition from kind of COVID restrictions into the Euros. I mean, there's a lot riding on this tournament, and having sort of witnessed the disturbances in Glasgow in recent weeks at the end of the season, having sort of seen the debate taking place online about 10,000 to 12,000 fans being admitted into stadia, but at the same time restrictions are in place in the city centres. There's just a bit of there's always a potential for a disturbance. There's always a risk of something happening, and I just hope that the fans realise that this has been sort of 7 or 8 years in the making, and it's Scotland's chance to sort of showcase the city, the stadium, and the squad, and put Scotland on the map and Hampden on the map. And I hope it all goes off smoothly. I just hope it's a great occasion.
Yeah. You touched on performance schools a wee bit, and perhaps I'm not best placed to comment because I actually turned down the chance to go to Braithurst in the inaugural year.
Did you? Okay.
But,
it's been a strategy that's actually been quite a long time coming. I mean, Braithurst actually was one of the sort of prototypes of the performance school concept, and thinking back to the likes of Craig Sibbald and people like that, I think were kind of involved at that school many moons ago. So yeah, it's been I think a great strategy to combine academia with sporting excellence and try and give players the UEFA level coaching to make them into better players and work alongside the clubs in that regard. I think it's really helped, and you only have to look at the number of graduates that have come out the performance schools playing at the highest levels to kind of come to the conclusion that it's been a very worthwhile exercise.
Yeah. Just for a bit of to offer the other side of it, I turned down I was at Scotland Boys Club, who at the time were a feeder club for Aberdeen, so played with Scotland on the Saturday, Aberdeen the Sunday.
Okay.
So we get 5 or 6 in the forms, I think it was 2012-13, to say, do you want to come round to the school, have a look around it and stuff. But I'd known a couple of people there, and in this area, in terms of the actual academia side of it, Braithurst's exam results in terms of maths, English and that were all down on like Cardinal Newman and Bells Hill Academy.
Right.
Places like that in the local sort of area. I mean, that was a trend with all the other ones in the area, but was that something you had to consider? Because for me and parents at the time, it was almost too football top heavy, and if worse came to worse, I think it's only 1% of players in that actually make it as professionals. And if I didn't, I wouldn't have made it in the end. Wouldn't have made it. Is there a way to bridge that gap?
It's a really good point, actually, because we were very conscious that we wanted to get a blend or a balance between academic excellence and sporting success. And you think about the sort of football, strictly being a lot of kids who've gone into football that really never focused that much on their academic work at school. It was really focused on the football, and that was it. We were conscious that we wanted to try and combine the two, and the performance school head teachers were pivotal in that. They bought into the vision. They agreed that the curriculums could be adjusted so that coaching lessons could be provided on a morning and an afternoon, and occasionally maybe one lesson might be sacrificed in order to do that. But things like homework being submitted, attendance at class, attendance at school, discipline in school, for me, they were all values and principles that kind of were reinforced by the school. So yes, there's always going to be differences between private schools and the state sector, between one school in one city and one school in another in terms of educational achievement. But I'm a big believer that if you've got a good student who works hard, whose values are reinforced by his or her parents, by a head teacher and by the PE staff who are supporting the sporting side of it, then that child will rise to the top. And, you know, my kids didn't go to private school. My kids went to the state school like I did. And I was a big believer. We came from a working class family from the northeast of England. I was a big believer that if you're going to be successful, you work hard and you'll rise to the top of your class and you'll achieve what you need to achieve. All my family went to university. All my kids went to university. None of them went to the state sector, to the public sector, and you know they've all done well in their lives, and they've all got good jobs. So I think it's down to the discipline, the focus, the behaviour, all being reinforced, and you know you'll be as good as you can be based on your own values.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll differ from school to school, because I know I don't know if it's strictly a performance school, but at St Ninians, for example, you've got guys for that breaking into the Celtic first team.
Original performance school, yeah, it wasn't one of the original performance schools, but it was a school that had a very strong connection with football and actually with the Celtic academy as well. So yeah, it has a good reputation for sure.
Mm-hmm. For you though, I mean, when you said that message in 2014 about getting these guys into schools, you must feel vindicated when you seen them. I know the nation had been calling for Billy Gilmour to be in the squad last year, never mind this year. But it's vindication and sort of an example for guys coming through the sort of performance school system that you can get somewhere with it.
Oh, definitely. You know, there's been hundreds of kids come through the performance school now in the last 8 years. And, you know, the last time I heard figures mentioned, I think it was over 50 players, maybe even more now, that have actually gone on and signed professional contract terms with clubs, some in England and some in Scotland. So there's more and more interest in Scottish gifted and talented players. I think as a result of seeing the likes of Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney come out of Scotland and make such an impact at the highest level. So it's attracted a lot more scouts, and the performance school kids have really done well. I mean, I still keep in touch with a lot of the coaches in Scotland, as you might expect. And, you know, I'm aware that some of the squads have been made up almost exclusively of performance school graduates. And for me, that's a really good sign that those players are of the right quality. I mean, there are those in Scotland, you know, in senior positions who would argue that those players would have achieved anyway. They would have been successful anyway. I'm not so sure. I think there's kind of a really good case study here of academic and sporting balance and focus and more contact time with the ball, better quality coaching experiences, and then couple that with the academy experience of the club, and you're actually giving such a good mix and such a good kind of recipe for the player to be successful. So I think it's a great recipe, and I know many other countries in Europe are looking at what Scotland has done with the performance schools. And you know, in my work now, I'm doing a lot of work with both FIFA and UEFA, and I'm often asked about the Scottish FA's performance strategy and to kind of explain the component parts of it. And obviously the performance schools were one of the key pillars of that.
Yeah, I can imagine it's probably been, you speak to guys, and I can imagine the last year's been extremely hard for these type of things, because youth football's pretty much been binned for this season. And even in school, I mean, I know just from my wee sister's case, I mean, she's only been in school for 8 weeks or something this year. So yeah. I can imagine this year's been particularly challenging on that front.
Yeah, it has, and I think that's the same for most countries. You know, apart from those clubs that have got, you know, their own kind of private pitches and private arrangements for their academy kids, I think, you know, everyone's had to comply with the laws of different countries, and I know Scotland has had some tough laws for the majority of the lockdown been communicated with by their clubs, by their coaches. They'll have been keeping fit. they'll have been eating the right things, they'll have been exercising at home, they'll have been doing individual skills on their own, and when they've been able, they'll have been going out and practicing. So I don't think professionals or potential professionals will have suffered too much, particularly from a fitness and performance point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For you personally, now that Scotland is going to this major tournament, how do you sort of look back on your time with the SFA? Do you just perhaps wish that it was you in that sort of major tournament hot seat for the summer?
Yeah, it would have been nice to have been in Scotland when the team qualified for a major tournament. But I think looking back, there's been a lot of satisfaction of progress that's been made. Like I said, you only have to look at the progress of the young players, the performance school players breaking into the squad. The staging of a major European final tournament at Hampden Park, one of 12 cities across Europe staging that, and it was nice to be part of that bidding process back in 2014. The success of the women's game, the success of the Lowland League, and I played a significant role in creating the pyramid for Scottish football by opening up the bottom of the League Two, and it's been quite satisfying to see Edinburgh City and Cove Rangers, and obviously now Kelty Hearts breaking through and actually not just surviving but being very competitive and impressive in their time in the league. We implemented a lot of changes off the pitch within the Scottish FA from a governance point of view. So I think there's been a lot of progress that have put foundations in place, and it's great to see that many of those are still being utilised. None more so than Oriam at Edinburgh, of course, which is the National Performance Centre, which was part of our performance strategy and which was funded without a single penny of the Scottish FA's money having to be invested. It was delivered through partnerships with the Scottish Government, with Edinburgh City Council, and with Sport Scotland. So achievements like that are satisfying, and I think in some small way have played a part in the success of the players as they've sort of moved forward.
Yeah, I'm sure your phone's been quiet with Lowland League stuff in the last few weeks with everything going on down that neck of the woods with Celtic and Rangers Colts in recent weeks.
Yes, it's been quite interesting watching the developments there. I mean, cult teams has been discussed for many years. It was on the agenda when I was doing the CEO role in Scotland, and it was one of the discussion points about how do you allow talented young players to have that best opportunity. If you're only playing against other young players, but not necessarily being tested by playing against men, then are you ever going to get the chance to be the best you can be? So there was a school of thought that, when a player was good enough, they should be given the chance to play again. Have seen fit to try and include this for 2021-22 season. My only sort of pushback at the time was that such an opportunity shouldn't only be restricted to maybe 2 clubs. It should be something that is given, the opportunity should be given to every club. If that club can afford it, if that club wants to take part, then that opportunity, should be made available to everybody. So that would be the only argument I would have. But I think the principle is a good principle, and it happens, for example, in other countries, in Spain, for example, where cult teams are there as part of the youth development processes for bringing talented players through.
Yeah, and I think Jim Goodman was speaking at St Mirren a few weeks ago, pretty much maybe not in the next year or something, but maybe in the next 4 or 5 years, it's something that clubs like St Mirren could look at. I suppose from your point of view as well, I mean, without going down a rabbit hole or things like that, I mean, you would like to think for like your programme, the USL, you'd see more performance school graduates and things like that, because I'm assuming even it was only started 6 years ago or about that. Yeah. So you're only going to be seeing the first graduates, if you will, from S1 to S6. So
yeah.
Going to be seeing sort of these type of players perhaps in the next few years in these type of cult teams or things like that?
Yeah, it's like any pipeline. It starts to trickle, and you get the Billy Gilmours and Nathan Pattersons kind of coming out of the pipeline. But then, as that pipeline kind of starts to run faster, you would expect to see more players emerging who could go on and compete at the highest levels. And not everybody will reach the dizzy heights of a Premier League, or even a Championship. But if they can make a living by doing something they love, then actually that performance school program has played some part in that. So, I feel that there'll be more of these types of initiatives in the coming years, and giving players the chance to become the best they can be.
For you this summer, what are you sort of, for anybody that doesn't know, what are you sort of up to now outside your work? Now you've been away for a few years.
Yeah, so I set up my own business in April 2018. I run a sports consultancy business called Ascend Global. And in the 3 years since setting it up, I've actually doubled the turnover twice. And it's going very well. I'm working with FIFA, I'm working with UEFA, I'm working with a number of individual football associations around the world, one or two other sports, and also the higher education university sector as well. So it's kept me busy. It's allowed me to still keep in touch with football and still use my own network of contacts, still use kind of my skills in sort of developing areas of the game that I feel can be improved. So it's been enjoyable working from home as well. Obviously, that's been amplified during lockdown, but running a business from home has been quite satisfying. During the time, I've also become a grandfather to identical twin boys, which was quite a nice experience. And my youngest daughter is due to get married next year as well, so we've had a lot on, both personally and on the work front. So it's been a great few years, and thoroughly enjoying it.
Now you've got two of them. Do you put an England kit in one and Scotland kit in the other, just to
Yeah, I think unfortunately neither myself nor my wife have got any Scottish blood in us, so it'll have to be either England or, from my dad's side, maybe Ireland as well. Who knows?
But I mean, England and Scotland probably both aren't going to get out the group stages. Obviously, it's going to be England that don't get out, and Scotland will be fine. But how do you think the two countries will go into the Euros this summer?
I think it's going to be very tight. I think all the smart money would be on England, with all of their sort of superstar players and big names in the squad, probably coming out on top. But I would hope Scotland will surprise a few people, and I'd love to see if there was any way at all that they could at least put up a good show. And if they don't get out of the group, it won't be for the want of trying.